So, Dean, that's your cue.
That's your cue,
Okay.
Dean. That's your. I want to hear all about this. I want to hear this. So.
Well, of course, the day after I saw the post, I saw that it won those 3 awards, and I kind of rolled my eyes. The post, the post is, obviously it's a Spielberg movie, so you have to see it. If you're a film fan, you're not going to miss it. That said, when it was all over, I turned to my friend that I went to the movie with, and I said, "What'd you think?" He said, "Minor Spielberg." And I said, "Yeah." There's 2 Spielbergs. There's the historical Spielberg that, wins Oscars like, Munich and Schindler's List and something like this, and Amistad maybe, or Color Purple, and then there's the popular Spielberg, that everybody loves. And for me, his historical movies are obviously more adult in nature, and I wanted that from this movie, but I felt like it was kind of a teenager's kind of primer to this period in history. It didn't really feel like an adult movie, and for a number of reasons. But for a movie that's been rushed out as quickly as it has, I mean, it's really been in production for less than a year. I'm still stunned that it's out, because I think the production was announced something like in April or something. So they didn't even have a year to do this, but it had to come out. I guess Spielberg felt like it had to come out because of the times that we're living in, that are threatening the press and with this president that we have. And so the post is very much a commentary on the present, while detailing the. Of course, the movie is about the people at the Washington Post. Hanks plays the editor, Ben Bradley, which is the same role that Jason Robards won an Oscar for in All the President's Men. And Streep plays Katharine Graham, the owner of the Post. She really is the inheritor of the Post after the real owner, her husband, has passed away. Mm-hmm. So she's somebody who's really not familiar with this world, is really more of a socialite, and so she's, as a character and as a colleague, even though she's the head of the whole Megillah, she's marginalized in the meetings that you see in the movie. The movie is really a series of meetings, boardroom meetings, editing room meetings, meetings at her mansion. So it becomes a little repetitive in terms of action. Really, it's very talky. I would say that it's stodgy in many ways. There's never a sense, how with this movie, you're going to be, comparing it to All the President's Men. And with All the President's Men, there's a ridiculous sense of danger in it. It's as much a suspense movie as it is a historical film, and so you're kind of looking for a little bit of that in this, and I don't really feel like they achieved it. I didn't ever feel any kind of real sense of personal, danger in it. I didn't really feel like anybody was, really on the chopping block. I know that they were. But so to give you an idea of where this movie comes from in terms of tone, and my reaction to it, I kind of rolled my eyes. The first moments of it, I was rolling my eyes. it opens up in Vietnam with Daniel Ellsberg, who's played by Matthew Rhys, from The Americans. He plays Ellsberg, and he's in Vietnam, so he's experiencing the war firsthand, and the moment that I rolled my eyes is, you can, as all of the the production company's credits are going, you start to hear, the rumblings of, the jungle and helicopters in the background and stuff, and like, oh, yep, just like I thought, it's going to open up in Vietnam. And then what do we hear? We hear the overly familiar sounds of a Creedence Clearwater Revival song. This one is Run Through the Jungle. And I immediately rolled my eyes because it's been used in, a Creedence song has been used in literally every Vietnam movie that you can name, and it's a cliche. And there's only about 6 million songs that were that were released during the Vietnam era. And you can certainly choose, don't choose CCR ever again, and don't choose Jimi Hendrix either. Just skip over all this and find something else. There's a million songs. But so I was already rolling my eyes, and I knew what kind of movie this was going to be. This is the kind of movie that Spielberg is widely loved for a lot of the sort of Capra-esque touches that he brings to movies. I just wish that he would leave the Capra-esque out of something like this, because I feel like it makes things a little childish. It's like, okay, so let me mention some details that kind of make me, okay, there's two scenes where they're going to sound very small, okay, but they add up. There's two separate scenes where like a copy boy or a delivery boy is delivering something with such rushed urgency that they almost get run down by a car. Not just one, but two. Okay. There's a scene where Bob Odenkirk comes in and has to make an urgent phone call. Instead of just reaching into his pocket and getting a couple of dimes or whatever, because it was a dime back then, he reaches in and gets a whole bunch of change and smashes it on the thing, and the change goes flying and stuff. And I was just like, why does everything have to be overdone? When they walk into Ellsberg's room and see the Pentagon Papers for the first time, they're spread out all over the place. They're all crazy, I know that they were out of order and stuff, and they're trying to put them in order, but it's always over the top with Spielberg. Another one, when the presses start running on the big story, there's a shot of Odenkirk at his desk, and the desks and everything are shaking because the power of the presses are so great. Well, I used to work at a newspaper, and I can tell you that the presses are way underground because they're so heavy they have to be underground, and the editorial offices are way up high. And there's no way that the rumbling of the presses is going to shake the entire building. So, that's the kind of detail that I'm just, why does everything have to be so overdone? At the end, Catherine Graham, and we know how it ends, so I'm not spoiling it, okay? But Catherine Graham is walking down the steps from the at the courtroom or whatever. And there's a whole line of women looking at her adoringly. It's not just, one woman and a guy and two more women and a few guys. No, it's all women, every single one. And they're all looking at her like she's a saint. And I'm like, well, how do they even know what she looks like, really? I mean, they all know what she looks like. And they're,
well, she was
why does it all have to be all women, too? It's like, I get it, but he's so concerned with things reading clearly that he overdoes things.
Well, he does, though. He does that. He does do, yes.
Yeah. Okay, and then finally, I'll just bring this up. Okay, so there's a scene where all of the the editors and everything are trying to put together the Pentagon Papers again because they're out of order, and they're meeting over at Bradley's apartment, or not apartment, a house, and Bradley's kids are there, and he's got his one daughter there. Of course, it's a Spielberg movie, so you can't have a Spielberg movie at all without any children in it whatsoever. You got to have some children in it. So, even in something like this, which is resolutely adult, so we have the daughter in there, and she's selling lemonade, and she's selling lemonade first for 25 cents a cup, and then she ups it to 50 cents, showing her entrepreneurial spirit. By the end of the scene, she has like $51 bills in her hand. She's counting them, and I'm like, it's so embarrassing. Like, do you think? Let me ask this question: do you think that All the President's Men would be highly regarded as highly regarded as it is today if it had a scene of a little girl selling lemonade to
You're saying that it makes its metaphors too obvious.
It makes the metaphor too obvious, and it makes it a little kiddie. I mean, it takes
there are metaphors in All the President's Men.
There are, but they don't have any little girls selling lemonade in it.
What are you, Roy Moore, all of a sudden? No,
it's cute and everything, but it's too cute. It's like this is.
I understand.
Now I've listened to a lot of things I didn't like about the movie. Let me tell you some things I did like about it. Hanks and Streep are terrific in it. I mean, you wouldn't expect anything less from them, and particularly Streep, I think, is very good, very, very good in it. She has some tremendous scenes in it, and it's interesting too for Hanks to be playing somebody who's rather irascible and not so go along to get along and that kind of thing. He's some people might frame him as kind of an ass in it, and that's rare for Hanks to play a kind of a character like that. So I dig that. It's got a huge supporting cast in it. It's a pretty dazzling supporting cast, but almost none of them are given very much to do. They get kind of lost in the crowd, really. I mean, it's great to see. For instance, it's great to see, David Cross and Bob Odenkirk in scenes together, and you think back on Mr. Show, and you're like, wow, would they have ever thought that they were going to, be in a Spielberg movie together at one point in their career? No, probably. But, I love Tracy Letts and Bradley Whitford, who I think is turning into Martin Scorsese visually. He could play Martin Scorsese right now. He could play the present day Martin Scorsese. Just put a pair of glasses on him and he looks exactly like him.
Bradley Whitford?
Yes, it is stunning how much he looks like Scorsese. If you just put the glasses on him, he could play him. People like Carrie Coon and Sarah Paulson, who plays Hanks' Bradley's wife, they sort of get lost in the shuffle, strangely enough. And there's just not a lot of meat on the bone for all of those people. I will say that the movie really comes alive for me in the middle of it once the papers are finally gone over by everybody, and the moral implications of its release are and what's in them really hit everybody. And there's a fantastic scene with Streep confronting her friend Robert McNamara, who's played by Bruce Greenwood, who's always good.
Yeah, that's a great choice for McNamara.
Yes, very good casting. And they have probably the best scene in the movie together. But that's where the movie really comes alive with ideas, but it's very fleeting. And just generally, I just felt like the movie was a little dull. And that was the general feeling I had. I wasn't brought to electricity by the ideas in it, like something like Munich did for me. I was just kind of I don't know. It's just it's a prestige movie, and it's perfectly fine. I'm not like trying to shit on it like tremendously, but for me, it's a 2.5 star movie. If I believed in the star system, that's where it would land for me. So that's it. You know. And I should say this too. Not a very distinguished John Williams score. In fact, almost completely like unmemorable. And I feel that way too about the contributions of his longtime cinematographer Kaminsky and his editor Michael Kahn, who I guess it's cut together quite well. I mean, you'd expect that from these guys, but it's not over the.
So how far will it get on social relevance alone in the award season, do you think?
It'll get nominations, but it won't win anything.
Okay.
Yeah, it's I wouldn't expect it to be considered a front runner for Best Picture. I mean, although it will get in there as a nomination.
Right.
Just like Bridge of Spies got in, And I think it's a strong possibility that both the lead actors will get nominated as well.